Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Today's webinar will be conducted in English with simultaneous translation into the Russian language. In case you would like to switch to Russian, please click the interpretation button below, select Russian, and mute the original audio. Дамы и господа, спасибо, что присоединились к нам. Сегодняшний вебинар будет проходить на английском с синхронным переводом на русский язык. Если вы хотите переключиться на русский язык, пожалуйста, нажмите кнопку «Перевод» внизу экрана, выберите «Русский» и отключите основной звук.
Good morning and hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar, Russian and UAE Food Trade in the Post-COVID Era, co-organized together with the Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, with support from Agro-Export and the Russian Food House in Dubai. My name is Sanan Nasibli, and I'm the Chief Representative of the Dubai Chamber International Office in Azerbaijan, which facilitates Dubai Chamber's relationships in the market of 11 countries, including Russia. Today we have a very exciting webinar with prominent speakers to discuss a very important topic. In order to help you understand the audience, would like to show you the breakdown of the countries of the registered users. We had more than 150 registrations as of last night, and 102 of those attendees were from Russia, about 37 from the United Arab Emirates, and 10 from other countries. We will be conducting some polls throughout the webinar, just to better understand our audience, so our esteemed speakers can tailor their messages and we can conduct an engaging Q&A. Judging from the list of the registration list, we have a lot of manufacturers in both in Russia and the UAE. We have prominent distributors of food products, wholesale and retail in the UAE. So this is going to be tailored for you, the manufacturers and traders, and those who provide consulting and professional support services, to facilitate a very prominent sector, food trade between the UAE and the Russian Federation. With this, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Omar Khan, Director of International Offices at Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for his welcome remarks. Mr. Khan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sanan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us today on our Zoom webinar in partnership with the Moscow Chamber of Commerce. And I would just like to welcome you all to the event today. And of course, although the circumstances are not the best in terms of the impact of the COVID-19, I think business must move forward. Life must go on. Life might change, but it will continue. And therefore, Dubai is very proactive, and we've probably heard the news. I hope you've heard the news today that we are soon open for business again. Our connectivity is growing in June, and even it's going to even go further in terms of travel, connectivity, supply chain in July. So I urge you, if you haven't seen it, go see the Emirates and Dubai Tourism advertising, where we announced that we are back in business. So the Russian UAE trade is one that has been growing in terms of food export and food import. As a lot of you know, the Russian Federation used to be a net food importer, but post 2014, investment was attracted, a lot of equipment and machinery was put into place, and now Russia is a net exporter with a very wide capacity to expand to the region and become a very strong player. Now, as you know, here in Dubai in the UAE, we import about 80 to 90% of our food items that we consume, because the location, the weather is not very hospitable to agriculture. Although we may look into indoor farming, vertical farming, and hydroponics, it will never be as cost effective as producing countries such as the Russian Federation. This is why we have been growing the trade. In 2019, it accounted, the Dubai Russian food trade accounted for $2.5 billion, and we think there's a lot more to grow. We have Dubai's food imports from Russia were at $305 million. And Dubai's food exports into Russia was 114 million, which is quite good, showing that Dubai can play a strong part as a re-exporter or even a food value addition provider in terms of packaging, qualifying, labeling, and value addition in general, being the transit hub that it is. Now, the Russian Federation, as I said, is growing into a very strong food powerhouse. The agro-product exports have surged over 300% since 2010, amounting to 25 billion, and I'm sure my colleagues will maybe correct me. And so the UAE can benefit a lot from this. With the COVID changes, with the shutdown, there's going to be a reset in terms of the positions of every country, depending on how fast they can do a U-turn. Now, Dubai can play a very strong part because Dubai and the UAE are very small. And many other economies are very large, and they are like an oil tanker. An oil tanker takes a long time to slow down, to change direction and do a U-turn, where Dubai is like a speedboat. And we can facilitate, because we don't grow any agriculture here, not much at least. So we can facilitate a lot of economies like the Russian Federation, like Brazil, like Argentina, like India, and many others into the recovery, as many countries are reconfiguring their import-export formula as well. And we are connected and soon to be reconnected to 2 billion consumers across the Middle East and African region that are within hours from Dubai. So again, this is something that's very important. The halal food industry is also a major component. It's estimated to grow to 1.93 trillion by 2022. So this is something to consider. And our relationship as Dubai Chamber has been growing, with our office being in Eurasia since 2012, and our activities with the Moscow Chamber of Commerce, as well as with the Moscow Export Center and the Russian Export Center and the Skolkovo Foundation. We're slowly getting very closer and more familiar with our colleagues and partners in the Russian Federation, and even to put another cap of achievement to support the growth. The Russian Food House was established in one of the previous Gulf food exhibitions at that time. And again, this brings the product, the people, and the businesses closer together, whether it's to come and trade with Dubai or through Dubai. So far, we have 530 Russian companies registered as members of Dubai Chamber. With this and continuous engagement, we look forward to having this grow. So I hope, I'm going to conclude, and I hope that you find this very useful in terms of a seminar, because we are looking at what we can do for our members to help them survive and thrive in the existing market climate. But then we have another eye on where the opportunities lie and try to get them to both sides as soon as possible to increase the speed of our recovery. Thank you, and enjoy the event.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar, for those remarks. We look forward to an engaging discussion. And next, the floor is presented to Mr. Suren Vardanyan, Vice President at Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for his welcome remarks. Mr. Vardanyan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sanab. I want to welcome everybody who decides to event. I'm sure that it is one of the interesting events for the last times which we are together. And I want to say thanks very much for our partners, Dubai Chamber of Commerce of Industry, for this initiative. I want also to say that for Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the international cooperation is one of the main targets. And I'm sure that Dubai is one of the interesting door for companies. And we take a lot of attention for cooperation with United Arab Emirates. And one of the first commission for cooperation with foreign states was a commission for cooperation with partners in United Arab Emirates. And my friend Mr. Busi will speak after in this seminar, and I hope he will tell us about our special steps for activating this cooperation. I also want to say that for Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we think that one of the important cooperation now is a cooperation in the food industry, and I really want to say that it is not only the supplying of food; it's also the questions concerning new technologies of processing. I also want to say that one of the main questions is to organize reliable cooperation between companies, and this is one of the first point of our agreement between Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Moscow. I need to say that the cooperation which we started in 2012 is very beneficial for both sides, and we already done a lot of interesting events. What I also want to say is that the Moscow Chamber of Commerce supported the function of Russian food pavilion in United Arab Emirates. I think that this project has a very interesting directions and develop, and I think that the Russian food pavilion is like a motivating point for both. What I also want to say that we are in a very interesting time. We are living in a very interesting. The life changes, and we that it will start new technologies of cooperation, new points of logistics. And I want to say that very important to create something together, because the life shows us when we are doing something together, when we are creating, is one of the main decisions of developing the main hub. And I don't want to say a lot because, from my opinion, it's more interesting to hear the reports of our colleagues, which make points to concrete business cases and new directions of cooperation. And I really hope that our commission will be one of the main bridge between Arabian and Russian companies. One more, I want to thank my partner, Mr. Amar, for his intention to do something more and more active in our cooperation. Thank you very much, and I want you to be lucky in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vardanyan. We appreciate the partnership, the strong and growing partnership with Moscow Chamber of Commerce, which lays the foundation for successful outreach and facilitation of business between our members and the wider business communities of our countries. So even though we have understanding of the profile of the registered users, we'd like to better understand the breakdown of the actual connected companies. So we will be conducting a quick 3 polls to better understand, first of all, which country you represent, which country your business is established in. So kindly submit your votes now, whether you're from the Russian Federation, the United Arab Emirates, GCC, and other destinations. So we'll wait for a few seconds while everybody submits their vote. And 5 more seconds for everyone to submit their votes in this poll. Thank you very much for your votes. Okay, so we have 72% from the Russian Federation, 21% from the UAE, and other destinations. Very good. Excellent. Now let's go to the text poll to better understand what industry you represent, and these are in the alphabetical order. Please mark the industry or sector which your enterprise, whether it's public or private, is engaged in. Kindly submit your votes now. And 5 more seconds for people to complete their voting. Okay, concluding this poll, let's see for the results. Manufacturers, 38%, wonderful. Distributors, 15%. We have business associations, so very good to see you, our colleagues and partners, as well as other industries that chose to join us for a discussion. Thank you. And finally, our third poll of the day, to better understand our audience. Are you engaged in bilateral business? And by that I mean, regardless of the nature of your activity, whether you're a for-profit or not-for-profit, whether you're in the UAE or in the Russian Federation, do you have a relationship with someone on the other side? If you are in the Russian Federation, do you have a relationship with someone in the UAE? Or if you are outside of the Russian Federation, do you have a relationship, whether it's partnership, distributorship, or any other, with your stakeholders in the Russian Federation? So kindly submit your vote. Let's see how what percentage of us are engaged and what percentage are looking at establishing relationships. And 5 more seconds to complete that vote. And let's see. Oh, so 60% are engaged and 40% are looking. Lovely. So it's great to see that we have a strong interest from companies that are not represented, but also strong interest from those that are. Those that are probably looking to expand their relationships, find new partnerships, or grow the engagement in each other's markets. So excellent. With this, we were hoping to give everyone attending and also our prominent esteemed speakers a good understanding of the audience and how to tailor their messages. So we'd like to proceed with our next speech. And the floor is given to Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman, Senior Manager, Business Relations Department at the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for his presentation on UAE food security. And Mr. Sulaiman will make a PowerPoint presentation with comments. Thank you, Mr. Sulaiman. The floor is yours.
Sinan, thank you so much for the introduction, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So today, during the presentation, I will be touching parts and covering 3 main points, starting by the definition of food security. Food security was defined by enabling all citizens and residents to have access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food at affordable prices at all given times, including the times of emergencies and crises. And during the recent pandemic, we have seen the critical role that the United Arab Emirates and the Dubai government played in maintaining the food prices across the country, maintaining and controlling the inflation, but most importantly, ensuring that the supply chain for the UAE and especially Dubai remains intact and uninterrupted, as Dubai, as you may all know, is an international logistics hub which serves not only the region but the wider continent and the rest of and the other countries of within 4 and 5 hours reach, and the rest of the world, to be very particular. So ensuring the smooth flow of imports and exports as well was an important and critical matter that the government made sure that this goes uninterrupted during the pandemic times. As we have seen, so many countries witnessed a number of lockdowns and the dependence on a number of those countries in terms of food security and import of food and other major items has been impacted to a certain extent. It's also worth to mention that the United Arab Emirates government has appointed a Minister of State for food security back in 2017. And during a very short period of time, the minister was able to enhance the ranking of the country in terms of the Global Food Security Index by moving to the 21st position in the year 2019, tying up with countries such as Japan. The target is to be amongst the top 10 countries in the year 2021. And when I first saw that target, I felt it was a little bit ambitious. However, looking and comparing ourselves with Singapore, which ranks the first on the Global Food Security Index, it imports 90% of food, which is a similar case to Dubai and to the UAE, where we have the right components and the excellent infrastructure, which will enable us as a country, as a city, and to be very specific, achieve that goal in a very short period of time, and maybe ahead of the target set by the ministry. There are three main dimensions while measuring the country's ranking in terms of the food security index. First, the availability of food, which refers to measuring and understanding the stock levels of strategic food items available in the country, the production capacity of the factories and the farmers, and most importantly, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the supply chain. As mentioned earlier, the government of Dubai ensured that it is as seamless as possible to ensure the flow of different types of goods to Dubai and outside of Dubai to serve the rest of the region. As you may know, that many companies take base off Dubai, especially the multinational companies, and have commitments with other countries. And in order for those to be able to fulfill those requirements, and the country and the authorities in Dubai ensure that this is of paramount importance. Second is the affordability of food. I mentioned in my previous slide that access to food at affordable prices at all given times is very important, and this has a very good weightage and a very important weightage when it comes to the food security index. And last but not least, quality and safety of food, which refers to the measures taken from the producers and the suppliers to ensure that the food received by the end user is acceptable, safe, and of good quality. This all leads to the stability of the country when it comes to having the right formula of being at the top countries in terms of food security compared to other countries and peers within the region and globally. I wanted to touch point also on another factor, which is food insecurity, where there are two main elements when it comes to food insecurity: the long-term and the short-term and the long-term factors which affect food security in a country. And perhaps focusing on the short term, as we have witnessed recently from the pandemic, there was panic from the society, panic in terms of countries unable to reach certain supplies and export of their local production. But I also wanted to shed light on a very important factor that in the longer term, poverty and inaccess to the right assets and financial instruments could have a long-lasting effect on the country's ability to serve its citizens and the residents within. The second point is the establishment of the Dubai Food Security Committee. The Dubai government realized that it was very important to have a central unit to understand what are the available stock of the strategic items. And given the strong and long-term relationship with the private sector, the Smart Dubai government department was able to launch an online dashboard where it shows real-time data of the available stock within the retailers and most importantly in the supply chain. It gives the city an indicator on a daily basis on what is available and what needs to be restocked in the short time, and it in fact assists the government to have a quick response when it comes to maintaining the required level of the strategic food items. The system also allows the flagging and monitoring of the available stock of one or more item. It can also monitor any fluctuation in those items, and in case there is any significant drop, the alert would go to the committee, which will in turn communicate that with the traders and the food suppliers to take the necessary action if needed in that regard. Another element which we feel is very important is providing periodical reports to the private sector, and especially the ones who participate in making the dashboard successful by incentivizing them. The reports would actually show import and export trends, any change in the consumption or any change in the consumer behavior, which will assist them in the planning and forecasting in the medium and the short term to go ahead. The last point that I wanted to touch upon is the opportunities, and perhaps this would be in fact, the most important slide in the presentation. Dubai as a city and the UAE as a country have always relied on traditional markets. For instance, India and Pakistan are amongst those that supply the country with more than 50% of its local consumption. And there has been historical relationships with those countries. Proximity is very important. The quality and price of good play a major role in that. But our private sector have proven that they are resilient, especially during the lockdown which took place in India, by showing and proving that the alternative markets and channels have been well in place before the pandemic. We have a very strong diversity import when it comes to the main food items, but most importantly, the perishable items which come into and outside the country. And I understand Mr. Isa Khouri, my colleague, will touch upon that area. However, I just wanted to highlight how well connected the city with the remaining countries that can be of significance when it comes to maintaining and ensuring that we have a stable food supply for the local consumption. Second, the food security strategy of the country focuses and sheds the light on investing in innovative farming solutions. And we have seen a rise in the hydroponic farming within the country. As you may know, that the UAE and the GCC have a very harsh environment. Scarcity of water is an issue. And as a result, the government is embracing such technologies to be implemented and adopted in the country to ensure that we have a sustainable production locally. We do realize that relying on 90% of imports cannot change overnight, and perhaps it won't improve to more than it won't reach 50%, let me say, in the near future. However, focusing on such technologies will help support the local farming and at least reach a level where we think it becomes viable and can sustain us for a very short period of time in case there are certain disruptions. In terms of the opportunities as well, the Russian companies export a lot of wheat and pulses, and they in fact sit at the 5th rank from a from exporting food to Dubai in general. However, we think that other than companies operating in the food sector, there is a big opportunity for the tech companies, as the Russian companies are very much advanced in the tech space. And e-commerce, as one of the hypermarkets indicated in 2019, comprised of around 2% of total sales. There was no logical justification to invest in an online platform to improve their internal systems. However, they have also mentioned that they see a big growth in the next 5 years. I think this has changed now, and I understand and I know that many of the companies, in addition to the companies operating in the food supply and the wholesale, have already invested and looking for solutions where they can improve their customer experience and the customer journey. So that's a big thing. E-commerce is a big thing. It is coming to a level where people think that they need to move as fast as possible nowadays. And an interesting note to mention is that one of the startups that operate in the tech is a Russian company, started its operation from Dubai and expanded to other countries in Europe. And this is a testimony that the Russian companies can support Dubai and the UAE, not only when it comes to the food supplies, but within the technology and the in-house innovations that they can offer to this part of the world. This brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope that the information you saw is useful, and I wish you a good webinar going forward. Thank you so much, Sinan, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed, Mr. bin Sulaiman. It is very inspiring to see in your presentation that Singapore, for example, has the first ranking in the world, despite importing 90% of its food. So this shows that Dubai has room to grow, which Dubai, as we see, realizes. The Ministry of Food Security aspires to be, leading country in the world, and it can only be done with the help of partners such as the Russian Federation. And as you were mentioning, Russian companies, both traditional and startups, can be a major contributor to this success story. And Dubai's success historically is based on its openness and embrace of innovation, of the world, global culture, global supplies. So there's room to grow, and Russian companies can be definitely a part of the success story. So thank you very much. As we discussed the vision of the Chamber and the government for food security, it is very important to bring to the formula, to bring to the scene, the private sector, and who, if not them, are major stakeholders of UAE food security and help drive it forward. And with this, we'd like to welcome Mr. Issa Khoury, representative of the UAE Fruits and Vegetables Traders Group. Mr. Khoury is also the managing director of Mirak Group, a prominent food and vegetable stakeholder in the UAE. So, Mr. Khoury, welcome, and it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Sanan, thank you for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. In this seminar, I would like to also start this conversation by thanking the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and the Russian Chamber of Commerce in hosting this food seminar today. And we hope that by the end of this seminar, we would be able to express or inform everyone that the UAE today is probably blessed by the fact that the UAE is located in the middle of the world today, accessing food products from all over the world into the UAE, and then distributing it all over the region. Specifically, just to add on a little bit on what Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman had explained on the food security and how the UAE plays a very vital role in this region. The UAE today imports its food products from all over the world, does not have a major production, although in the time of the pandemic, in the time of the COVID-19, it was proven that it was one of the most successful cities or countries in the world that had no issues whatsoever when it came to food. And that is for many reasons. The UAE and our leadership in the UAE and in Dubai specifically as well has invested heavily in terms of logistics, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of having all the government entities working on a digital platform, working on technology in order to understand or to know and to specifically have data and collections and products coming into the UAE from all over the world. During the pandemic has proven to Dubai and to the people and to the businessmen of the UAE that the UAE actually has a very strong infrastructure when it comes to logistics and when it comes to freight and when it comes to sea freight, connecting the world in the UAE as a hub. So today in Dubai, businessmen or the people who are available in the markets in Dubai have been blessed by the fact that they could access all these logistic systems and support not only the UAE when it comes to food security, but also to support neighboring countries to ensure that they have enough food, enough supplies, enough of everything when the situation at that time was very difficult to have access. So as mentioned by Mr. Sunan, we represent here the UAE fruits and vegetable market, and I am one of the members in the market, and the market consists of five major categories, where all 9 companies who sit on the board of the fruits and vegetable market have different segments. One of them would be imports, and then you would have companies that are specialized in exports, companies that are specialized in the local market, the wholesale, and then the retailers. So all the information and data that is available on a daily basis on a digital platform is available today. We do imports into the market from all over the world. Majority of the imports that come here are also from international companies who have their companies headquartered in the UAE fruits and vegetable market, who target to supply neighboring countries. You have the GCC countries, you have the MENA region as a whole. So, Dubai, as we said, is a lovely place to be in. The work environment is very helpful for you to trade your products, to also invest in the production, as Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman emphasized on the UAE food security strategy. The Ministry of Food Security at the moment is incentivizing and figuring out how to create an efficient way to produce food products in the UAE. If it was in the fruits and vegetable sector, the dairy sector, the fishery sector, the poultry sector. So the UAE is now targeting UAE production and is coming up with solutions, is coming up with incentives, is coming up with ways of how people could efficiently produce their fruits and vegetables or any kind of food product and manufacturing in the UAE to target the local market and for re-export. Now, the very good thing about us as UAE business owners or traders or whoever is located in the UAE is data. So here in the UAE, the government has provided us with a lot of data so that we would know where are the main majority of the food products coming into the UAE, coming into Dubai, and how we can as a country produce that internally or be more efficient in getting those products to be able to be on a competitive level for the region. Thank you very much. And Sinan, I think you have some other things you would like to discuss.
Yes, Mr. Khoury, thank you. Thank you very much for giving us an overview of your business group and which companies it consists of and how it's part of the UAE food security discussion and policy execution. I am curious, what are your observations in terms of changing consumer preferences in the market? Since we have a lot of manufacturers and from the Russian Federation joining us, they are probably curious to hear what is changing in the last 5 years, and where do you see that those preferences are going? Whether it's health foods or more fresh or perishable. What are your observations in this regard? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So yes, we do see a lot of changes in the food industry here in the UAE. I think there are a lot of entities, including the government, who are raising awareness on clean eating, on eating food that is clean, that is pesticide free, that is also good for your health, eating organic, eating products that are and the world, actually everyone around the world is now talking about eating healthy. So we do see a lot of changes in terms of what the consumers choose when they go to their retail stores. Also on the way business is going, as Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman also said, there are a lot of people who used to solely depend on going out of their houses, going to retail stores to buy their products. Today we are seeing a big change into e-commerce. There is a huge demand, especially in the past few months when the COVID-19 was available and still is available actually. when the pandemic happened, there was a huge surge in the amount of people who are shopping online. So that is a major change in our industry. A lot of the companies are heavily investing into online platforms, into e-commerce, and there is where a lot of the business is changing towards. So there are also very exciting ideas that are coming into place in the market. There are companies who are actually innovating online platforms to cross-sell throughout countries. So not only to have an innovative farm-to-door solution whereby companies deliver from their warehouses to the houses, but no, there are companies who are now investing from delivering online services from food products from their warehouse in Dubai to the houses in Saudi Arabia and different places in the region. I can just show you as an example. So we are connected to many suppliers around the world, and one of our major exporters is our Dutch exporters from Holland, who have beautiful products and fairly much expensive products. Although their products are listed on UAE companies' online platforms, whereby people could log in now and buy whatever they want from these companies in Holland in order and deliver it directly to their doorsteps. When it comes to food products, I'm talking about. So there are a lot of innovative ideas, a lot of different things that are coming into the market, and that's where we see the change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khoury. And finally, if you can please give us a brief overview of your personal investment priorities in coming years. Are you looking at Eurasia? Do you have experience doing business in Eurasia or maybe in the Russian Federation? And what would guide you as a UAE investor towards these markets? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I mean, as I mentioned before, of course, Sinan, we are always looking at investments overseas. The UAE is for us a destination whereby all our products come and sit here and then wait to be marketed for the region. So today we have farms in Armenia, we have farms in Tunisia, we have farms in Morocco, we have farms in Spain, we have contract farms, also many contract farms all over the world, whereby we contract certain products with these farmers to purchase their full productions, import them into the UAE, and then re-export them. So a lot of our investments in different countries, for example, Tunisia, started off as a contract farm. So whereby we go, we inspect the farms, we transfer our technologies here that we have been using for many years in the UAE to those farms in Tunisia, to those farms in different areas of the world, whereby we inform them what specific items we require in this region, in Dubai, in the GCC, and we produce there. Thereafter, we go on to further create that relationship into a partnership. So whereby we now own farms in different parts of the world. And Armenia also, we have farms there where we also export our products from there into Russia. Although Dubai as a location helps us gather information, helps us understand what the region requires. And that is very important because there are companies here in the market today who are huge companies. They do a turnover of over $1 billion. They do not have one product coming into the UAE. So all of their products come into our ports and then are re-exported to and then they are re-exported to different countries, and the government very much supports those companies. The government also has, as I said before, given us the best infrastructure in order for that kind of business to be possible and feasible. Also, we see a very much we have seen a huge growth in the Russian population here in the UAE. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago who's the managing director of Nakhil Retail. And he was telling me during the pandemic, where a lot of the restaurants were affected worldwide, although he saw a very interesting trend in the Russian restaurants that are opening up on the Palm Island. And that's because the Russian community here is growing, and they also, and this is a very small example, but I mean, we see a huge increase in restaurants coming, targeting the Russian community, whereby a lot of this also in the future creates a demand for the Russian products to also come into the UAE and to be distributed into the UAE as a hub, and then furthermore distributed to the region.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Khari. Very important point. We saw a huge spike in the number of tourists, Russian citizens visiting United Arab Emirates after the authorities, the government of the UAE granted visa upon arrival to the Russian citizens. So this definitely helps both tourism and business, which is very important. Access to the market, accessibility of Dubai is crucial for its success. So we are happy to see increased Russian participation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Khoury. It's great to, it was great to see your insights and understand how the UAE private sector embraces food security in Dubai, in the UAE. So please stand by for, we're going to have a question and answer session as well. I think we have one of the speakers have the microphone. Okay. So next, now that we heard from the UAE side, the position of the government, the chamber, as well as the private sector, we'd like to switch to the Russian Federation. And our next speaker is Mr. Dmitry Krasnov, head of the Agro-Export, a subdivision of the Ministry of Agriculture and of Russia, of the Russian Federation. Mr. Krasnov will talk about the dynamics of Russian food exports to the MENA region in the post-COVID era, where Mr. Krasnov, welcome to our webinar. I would like to see you if possible. Добрый. Okay.
Я присутствую под именем Андрей Кучеров.
Okay. Okay. So will you speak in Russian, Mr. Krasnov?
Да.
Okay. So very quickly, we again look forward to hearing your thoughts on the dynamics of Russian food exports and what are the food export priorities of the Russian government.
Добрый день.
Yes, please. For excuse me, Mr. Krasnov. If I can, for English-speaking audience, you can switch the channel in the interpretation button on the bottom of your screen. Пожалуйста,
please, Mr. Krasnov. Please, we're listening. Good morning, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues for the organization of this event. I would like to highlight that the Russian side has a substantial amount of companies from different fields and industries. We have heads of associations in butter, oil, cattle, confectionery, representatives of milk association, dairy association, also heads and heads of external business affairs departments, one of the biggest Russian industries. And as you have seen, many of them actively participate in fields in countries including MENA region, countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and a number of different other countries. Russian Federation increases its agricultural exports, and you may know that we already have a concept of providing food security as much as the UAE has. We have our own project connected to developing exports. Our plan is quite ambitious. Russian Federation today is 19th in exporting agricultural products. We are always increasing these amounts. Last year was $25.5 billion and more. We keep our leading positions in exporting grain, wheat, Our grain exports in 2019 equal to almost $8 billion. This year is going to rise. We increase our dairy exports, meat exports. We're still one of the most significant butter and oil production product exports. Last year it equaled to $4 billion. Also bakery products, including wheat, that's one of the major products that we export and one of the best rising exports, including UAE. Of course, we have a line of issues with some MENA countries. Not all products have been enabled to be exported and imported. Not all documents are in line right now, but we have quite a dynamic work going on with these countries, and we see no barriers that we won't be able to overcome. We, of course, would like to have dairy being more actively represented in certain countries. We hope very much that we will develop dairy products imports to Qatar, Kuwait, Algeria. Qatar and Kuwait are still closed to dairy imports. Algeria has just recently opened, and we believe we'll be able to enter that market. As for developing grain supply, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco are very important for us, and we are certain that we will be represented better in the UAE as well. Year to year, we've been increasing our representation in poultry and meat, despite all the difficulties that sometimes arise, especially in terms of requirements to our products. We overcome successfully the crisis in poultry. So right now we see serious prospects for us. As for confectioneries, right now we believe the volumes are not that high. We supply around $30 million worth of products to the UAE, and we believe the potential is at least 2.5 times more than that. These are realistic numbers. And of course, we hope very much that we will cooperate with our food house that is situated in the UAE. Together with the Russian Export Center, we hope that food house will become a link and a bridge for our companies, a bridge to this business environment, to the business partners in the UAE and MENA region countries. Of course, we understand that the UAE is not just a consumer, it's more than that, it's also a hub. It's an opportunity to enter some countries in Africa. They are also very prospective for us in terms of exports. And of course, we are interested in considering some products and projects connected to mutual investment. We have considered some of these projects already. You know that our cooperation is quite dynamic at the moment. Every time when we meet inside the framework of Gulf Food exhibition, we meet ministers of environment, food security. This year was no exception. We had these meetings on the levels of deputies. We are ready to invest in our relationship, and the interest that our companies show by participating in that event just confirm that point of view. The fact that we dedicate a lot of attention to that market. And we would like the results of this event give us certain channels of cooperation, both on the level of Russian Food House and Chamber of Trade and Commerce level, to discuss practical questions, how to realize that potential. To conclude my speech, I'd like to say that the situation that we have nowadays especially in the food market, connected to the pandemics. On the one hand, it interrupted some of the supply chains, but on the other hand, it made us think, how can we create new opportunities? What opportunities do we have right now for Russian products? Now we are even more competitive than ever. We have new opportunities. We can compete more efficiently in Southeast Asia market. So we believe, as much as every crisis, it will hit the consumption of expensive food products, on the one hand. On the other hand, all the trends connected to the development of the middle class go against that. But in any case, we realize that competitiveness in terms of prices is increasing in connection with the latest events. And we can, of course, be a very major partner. We expect our cooperation to increase in grain, and Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, those countries are extremely important for us. I hope that our dialogue will be productive. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Krasnov, for your speech. It is important for us to see the direction to the UAE and GCC countries, Middle East countries. We see increased participation of in exhibitions like Gulf Food, and Russian Food House in Dubai has a representative here for us. They promote Russian products not just in the UAE but also in many countries. Dubai is not just a consumer, it's also a world hub for re-exporting to wider markets. Thank you so much. We hope to continue our cooperation in that field. Our next speaker would be Mr. Sergei Vologodsky from Russian Export Center. Mr. Vologodsky, can you hear us? Mr. Vologodsky,
I believe you're online, so can you kindly turn your
can you
video
turn
on
on your sound, please?
and see you?
Пожалуйста, включите звук, господин Вологодский. Отлично. Кажется, у господина Вологодского... А, вот, мы вас видим. Вологодский? Доброе утро. Как у вас дела? Вы хотите по-русски или по-английски? Или по-русски? Вам по-русски удобнее, да? Russian is more convenient to you? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Vologodsky. Thank you so much for joining our seminar. Can I start? Yeah. I'll just introduce you, Mr. Vologodsky, Vice President of Russian Export Center. Our today's topic is government support measures for agribusiness. Good day, good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear Han, dear Mr. Han, all webinar participants. I'm Sergei Vologodsky. I'm Vice President of Russian Export Center. Today, in this webinar, I would like to talk about the opportunities we provide for our business partners and the cooperation we have with the UAE in terms of export. After 2019, we found out that the export of agricultural products to the UAE equaled to around $250 million, and that is 15% of all exports, including industry products that were created in 2019. A positive trend is that 2019's exports grew by 12%. Like Mr. Suleiman said and showed on his slide, Russia is number 5 in Dubai exporters, exporters to Dubai. I'm pretty sure that our exporters have all the opportunities to raise this number and grow and provide quality products that conform to all the standards and is in demand in the UAE and GCC countries. Our pavilion that we realize in the framework of supporting and demonstration of food products. We have 3 of them. Today I would like to focus on the one that is situated in the UAE. That's a platform for our manufacturers to place their products, and thanks to the operator's work that enables this pavilion. Our main task is, of course, export contracts, cooperation with distributors, retail networks, because the products that we demonstrate there or that we plan to demonstrate there needs to find its consumer, needs to find its contracts. Just a couple of words, please. I would also like to say that this is a very useful tool. It's free of charge and it allows companies to place their products in the food house. There are presentations that are needed, testing. We do all that on those platforms and elsewhere. Next slide, please. This is what our pavilion looks like in Dubai and to other countries. I would like to say that our exporters that produce agricultural products, we are ready to provide all the tools necessary, all the tools available to us in Russian Export Center Support Group. We launched a new program this year. It will allow to compensate all the costs of certifications of products. We are working actively with our colleagues, like Dmitry mentioned, the director of Russian Agri-Export. We're creating a new concept of promoting products via those pavilions. We want to launch that. We also have a number of tools that support our manufacturers abroad. So all the tools that are available to us, we can use, we can provide to the companies that see their own opportunity to enter GCC countries, market, UAE market, and neighbors. Speaking of the products that are situated there, I want to believe that many manufacturers, many representatives that work and live in Dubai visited our pavilion, and I hope that they could assess the assortments that we provide. Unfortunately, the biggest manufacturers that traditionally work with the Emirates and other countries, they don't have all of their products available there, unfortunately, but we are making steps in that direction as well. So we are interested in meeting the quality standards that the UAE has, and we hope that we will cope well with the coronavirus situation, providing some of the food security. We have a list of products that conform to the standards and like halal. So we are ready to work on that with our partners. And we hope for a full cooperation with the Chamber of Trade and Commerce and industry in Dubai to meet the demand on the local market better. I try to be as short as possible. Any questions later? Thank you so much, Mr. Bologotsky. We are grateful for your insight and for your partnership with the organizations. We would like to share our presentation and the slides with our participants. I think Emirates companies might have questions about how to use those tools that you mentioned, importing from Russia to the Emirates and to the Middle East. Please stay online for a later discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Logotsky, for the presentation, which will be shared with all of the participants of this webinar. Now we have a good understanding of the government priorities of expanding food exports, as well as support mechanisms and priorities established by the Russian Export Center. Would like to give a floor to our very good friend and partner in the Russian Federation, Mr. Alexei Busev, who is the chairman of the Russia-UAE Committee at Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the manager of the Russian Food House in Dubai. Mr. Busev has been doing business in the UAE and the Russian Federation for many years, so he has a very good understanding of the dynamics of bilateral trade. Mr. Busev would appreciate your time today and opportunity to discuss with you the objectives and goals of the Russian Food House, your experience in promoting Dubai Russian food exports to the UAE in the MENA region, as well as some opportunities in the reverse direction in promoting UAE manufactured food and produce in the Russian Federation. So thank you, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. صباح الخير. أهلا بكم يا ضيوف الكرام في هذا اللقاء. Доброе утро, дорогие друзья.
Good morning, dear friends. I will continue in Russian. I would like to express my gratitude to our friend and partner, Mr. Omar Khan, and his colleagues from Dubai Chamber of Trade and Industry. They are long-term partners. They support us in all our initiatives, and the idea of this meeting was created between me and Mr. Omar. And I think the main question of this webinar is, what can Russia supply besides grain and flour? And how can Emirates companies and other countries' companies, GCC countries and MENA region countries, how can they get information? How can they build their cooperation with these countries, with Russian countries? I'm pretty sure that Russian companies are interested in that as well. How do we pass the information? How do we work with Emirates partners? What is the practical mechanism? So the food house that we have in Dubai is one of those practical tools. I would like to say that at the end of this event, we would share the information database, context database for both sides. Russian side will receive the contacts and information about the participants from the Emirates side, and vice versa. Russian exporters will receive information about supply chains, trade companies, and the other way around. And of course, we pursue two directions simultaneously. We pursue the direction of food house work. This is our main platform to support Russian manufacturers. And also, Dubai Chamber of Trade and Industry is our main partner in supporting and enabling partnership with Emirates companies. So everything connected to further support. You can be sure that no contact, no person that takes part today in that event will be left alone without any support. I think that is important to mention. Next slide, please. So, Mr. Mohammed mentioned a certain dependence of GCC countries and the Emirates on import. For Russian companies, that's of course a good opportunity. in terms of increasing their presence in the GCC countries. And I can say that we receive information from our partners, big companies in the Emirates and neighboring countries almost every day. They prefer working through the UAE hub. They have certain requirements and demands. We share these demands with Russian Export Center and we work together. It's a dialogue format. Mr. Issa also mentioned Dubai's functions and the qualities, its opportunities as a product food hub. I think this is an important moment that we are trying to realize in that food house today. And of course, I need to mention say a couple words about what has changed in the recent coronavirus events. Of course, it had a significant major effects on food companies, but on the other hand, the opportunities that we underestimated previously in terms of online, they turned out to be better than we expected. We started working more actively with the neighboring countries, of course using the UAE as one of the main platforms, as a hub, and it produced some results already. I know, I've seen it recently, that we already have companies participating from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. We're connected to them via these new tools that emerged recently in the coronavirus situation. The main idea of my report today, my message is, first of all, tell Arabian partners, distributors and companies about this tool. If you don't know that Russian Food House exists, it was created on the initiative of Russian Agricultural Ministry and Russian Export Center. It is situated in Dubai, next to Iranian Hospital. If you haven't been to us, you're welcome. We're open 8 to 5, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our main task is promoting Russian manufacturers of food products in the Emirates and GCC countries. What Mr. Omar asked, what else does Russia export? We'll try to answer that. We'll try to give you information so that Arabian partners know more about what Russia manufactures. For example, healthy products are now quite popular. We believe it's one of the directions that Russia can move with an image. We have the grains, the butters, the oils, confectionery, bakery, and other types of products that are really interesting to promote, and we see a major interest to these categories of goods. Now, our main task is, of course, to promote Russian manufacturers, develop the image of Russian presence. Like Mr. Omar said, one of the major factors in doing business in the Emirates is personal contact and constant presence. You might know that the Arab world values contacts a lot. When they see you personally, like we have this sign that is visible from afar, and we have many new people every day. Not just company representatives, but also just regular people who want to try Russian products. And I like that Mr. Issa said Russian restaurants are opening nowadays, and they are non-Russian speakers are more interested in Russian products. We see that too. Mr. Omar said that he would be interested himself in trying that. He visited our place several times, and I hope that Russian manufacturers' products are something he likes. An important moment is that UAE is a gateway, is a food hub that deserves special attention, as well as neighboring countries. Right now, we work more with Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and just recently we started focusing on 4 African countries that you might know. You know that Dubai is a hub, trade hub for many African countries as well. Right now, we are enabling direct work through that pavilion we have, so that our African partners have an opportunity as well. Visit our platform, have some online contacts as well. Next slide, please.
The previous one.
Previous one, please.
Pavilion. Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Our
pavilion is a showroom on the first floor. We have more than 35 companies represented from many industries. Pre-coronavirus, we actually had events every day. It's important to understand that, of course, meetings and demonstrations happen elsewhere as well, in the offices and our partners' platforms, distributors, and different chains. But to see all the variety, we always invite Emirates companies so that they can see it for themselves. And very often, company comes for one thing. Like last week, we had a distributor to come, and they were interested in bakery, but they became interested in eggs instead. So that's an interesting dialogue, and thank God, more than 1.5 months ago, Dubai lifted some of the measures. Companies don't come personally as often right now, but it's becoming better. And considering that transportation over the sea hasn't stopped, still online, that allows us to focus on some product types. We see that some changes are happening in distributing. Last year, especially at the end, we've been focusing on a particular group of products. Together with the Russian Export Center, we created criteria for Russian companies, increasing the quality of companies that get into our pavilion and Emirates market. We have English, Russian, and Arab-speaking employees. Any Arabian country gets the information they need about the product if they come to us. We have personal dialogues with every company. So again, all companies, all our Emirates partners, other countries' partners as well, we're happy to see you at our pavilion. We're happy to send you additional information about all the products that we have. And of course, thanks to our partners in the Chamber of Trade and Industry and Arab partners, our families in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we are doing our best at promoting it informationally, not just in the Emirates, but it's a hub, it's a platform, so we are seeing this feedback coming in the latest months. They start to recognize us. Of course, it's not 1 week's work, 1 month, but this cumulative effect is visible. We can see it. As for the types of products that we have grains that has always attracted additional interest. We have 6 or 7 large companies interested in that. Also, vegetable oils, confectionery, healthy food. That's a separate category. We would like to focus on that. Of course, the volumes are not that competitive compared to grains, but in terms of interest, we see a colossal spike. Retail, distributors, everyone's interested. Also, beverages, baby food. We have some great representatives in that field and interest as well. In terms of Russian companies, I would like to highlight we have individual support for every company that comes to us. We get them all the information from the Russian Export Center. And I'm very grateful to our Arab partners who help us a lot in enabling and widening of our contact network with chains and distributors. A couple words about what we do with the products, how we work with it. As Sergey has mentioned already, I would like to reiterate. So we work for both sides. Russian companies we promote them in the market. But we also have an increased number of contacts from the Emirates side. And we hope that we will start realizing some of their demands, some of their requests with the cooperation with Russian Export Center. Some large companies like Dafra, Adia, and also medium companies, they have specific requests. And I hope that Russian Export Center will help us in that direction. Okay, these are our contacts, Russian Food House. We'll be happy to answer all of your questions. It's true for both sides, Russian and Arab partners. Again, I need to reiterate, we will have individual cooperation and work with every company that sends us a message. Any kind of questions, general work, particular products, we'll be happy to answer your questions. We're always online. Write us an email, here are our phones. Thank you so much for all the participants and the organizers of this event. I hope we will have more of them coming. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alexei, for your information. I'll switch to English.
Thank you very much, Mr. Busev, for the information and the guidance. And we're delighted to see your physical presence in Dubai through the Russian Food House, which, as you correctly mentioned, being in person in Dubai, being physically in Dubai is instrumental for cooperation and for business development. So your presence is a wonderful extension and support platform for the Russian business community and the food manufacturers. We'd like to switch to the question and answer session right now with all the esteemed speakers. And we have a few questions asked by the audience, but I will going to ask my first question to Mr. Omar Khan, Director of International Offices, Dubai Chamber. Mr. Khan, from your interaction with international businesses, just for the information of the audience, your office consists of 11 active offices throughout the world, all the way from Latin America to Asia. So in your interaction with very many international companies, both large and small, what do you think is the most popular misconception or maybe underappreciated concept of doing for international companies aspiring to do business in Dubai about the United Arab Emirates? Please.
Thank you for your question, Sinan. I think sometimes the distance and maybe the big news throws a lot of misconceptions about doing business. And I think there's a lot of middlemen in between. And I think businesses should learn and reach out to the Russian Food House, Mr. Alexei and his team, the Moscow Chamber and Dubai Chamber, because I think trust is very important these days. Trust can save you time, can save you money. And also, people assume Dubai is expensive. That's another issue. So now we have a negative inflation, it's 2.85%. We have rental cost going down from 11 to 15% already on softening prices. We have petrol prices that are also down to 40 cents per liter. And the benefits for whatever measures we have done for our existing business community now are very, very strong for newcomers. The most important point now, as I mentioned, it's very important to take advantage of these facilities, whether the food house, whether the international offices, whether the connectivity, because in a time when you have crisis, everybody's looking at cutting costs and accelerating business and accelerating the recovery. So using the offices, actually you have 11, by being a member of the chamber or connecting through our members, you have 11 business development managers that you do not need to pay for. You just pay your membership fee. So again, this is the time where you need to leverage the food house, Alexei's team, the Moscow Chamber, the Russian Export Center, and us. A lot of the times people assume, and it's a misconception, that, oh, I can do it better myself and I can go to a middleman. Here, we can take all of that out of the equation, thus saving you the cost of the middleman and even giving you additional savings by what we provide. I think that's really important. And from my travels and from my experience, I think actually going out and connecting to people gives you much more awareness. Looking at the news, I think is very high level. It doesn't focus on many things. I think repeated and follow up and getting more in depth with the right partners such as ourselves can really open your eyes in terms of what is available here versus what people conceive is available.
Thank you, Mr. Omar. Thank you very much. And let me put that question again to Mr. Bosev to reverse it in its concept. Alexei, from your experience in supporting UAE businesses aspiring to do more business in the Russian Federation, what is the most persistent misconception about doing business in the Russian Federation, and how do you recommend UAE companies overcome that? Please, the floor is yours.
So I would say in Russia we have the similar situation with the companies. I mean, with the format of the doing business like in the UAE. So I mean, to do business or like to have proper partners. First of all, you should have the strong presence. You should have regionally. You should have locally the strong partner, or at least the partners with the clear vision. Like the same situation, I know personally very well. If you want to do business in Arab world, you should live there. So if you're planning to do business in Russia, so this the same story. Also, I would like to stress, because unfortunately today we haven't a chance to discuss and to point out what are the products from UAE may be interested in Russia and what are the manufacturers from UAE. Meanwhile, I would like to say that we have already in the shelves of the Russian supermarkets the products of the Emirati companies like Hunter's Food. You know, you can find it in the Azbuk of Kusa, different types of the grocery or like nuts or snacks that manufactured by the Emirati company. We also see the products of Masafi. That's the question of the very smart promotion that the Masafi company had. And I'm sure that after the World Cup that we had 2 years ago, the Arab world opened the Russia for themselves, and all the business start to follow the cultural opening of the country. Definitely, I'm really sure in that, because for the last year, more than 200-300% increasing of the visits from the Emirati side, and definitely the business will go after that. So what I mean, the Russians know very well UAE has historically, you know, that a lot of Russian tourists, Russian businessmen visit UAE and opening business there. So we're really interested to see more Arab partners, more Arab companies that have presence in Russia that, you know, going to develop the existing business. And when you will have the strong grounds on the Russian soil, that definitely, so this is one of the, you will see much more business and much more understanding of the culture and a much more understanding of the business, and the growing business will follow. That's what my idea is. I'm seriously sure in this.
Thank you very much, Alexei, and thank you very much, Mr. Khan, again. We are going beyond the initially planned time lot for the webinar, so I'd like to ask one final question that is given by our audience, Mr. Khaled Al-Saadi. He's wondering, good morning. He says, good morning. Is the food supplements, vitamins, and nutritional products, do they need registration in Russia? If yes, what's the requirement? Alexei, if you can briefly cover the subject, or maybe ask him to get in touch with you, but is there a general answer to this question, please? Thank you. Alexei? Yes.
Sana, come again? I missed, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, the question is, do food supplements, vitamins, and nutritional products require registration in the Russian Federation? If yes, what are the requirements? I'm sure it's pretty complicated technically, but in general, from your experience, do they require registration? And how shall this company, Mr. Khaled Al-Saadi, how can they proceed with arranging that? Thank you.
No, first of all, I will start from the end. So you may address not only the questions from the chamber, from all of the participants. If you have any questions on your specific products, like whatever you want to supply, like cheese or dates or other types of the products, please address it to us. You will have our contacts. Regarding the types of the products, it's the same story. It depends on the product. If we're talking about the The meat, this is one story. If we're talking about the dates, it's different story. So certain projects required, like the same situation like you have in UAE. So to supply meat, there is you need halal certificate. To supply water, so you need Emirates mark. So for the certain types of the product, the certificates is required. For the certain is more simply and easier. I would like to proceed and to continue to tell you about each of the products. So generally, definitely some of the project required it, but please address it to us. So in case if you need the information about the specific products.
Thank you very much, Alexei. And I think I'll give the floor to Mr. Omar Khan for a final comment about the potential of e-commerce in Dubai and the prominent role it played in the COVID era, which will extend into the post-COVID era. So, Mr. Omar, what are your observations about the potential of e-commerce and how it's changing the retail landscape in the UAE?
Well, thank you, Sinan. Now, a very important point is that, as Mohammed bin Sulaiman mentioned, that e-commerce is only 2%, but it's growing at an alarming rate of about 80% per year in general, not just for food. Food, people are not used to ordering food online, especially fresh meats and so on, and vegetables. That is completely now changed in the UAE. Now, if you see, for example, companies like Gibson's, they go directly to the consumer. They deliver meats, they deliver fruits, vegetables, whatever we want, and now they're cross-selling many products. So again, this actually opens a new gateway where you are not stuck with the traditional supermarket channels and you have to pay excessive prices for the shelves. Now you actually can establish maybe directly yourself here as a supply chain provider, establish the portal or work with some of the existing portals, and you have a more competitive channel to access consumers in the UAE without going to the supermarkets, without paying the per SKU prices and so on and so forth. But this opens a very wide opportunity of where you can go with your new Russian product as well, where people are discerning, where people are looking for higher quality. There's a niche for everybody. So now you can go directly. You are no longer held hostage to a few traditional channels. This is something to take advantage of and maybe build yourself. And things that happen here in Dubai usually are trendsetters. So once you see the things happening here, you can go even beyond the scope of Dubai and even implement it in other virgin territories, such as Africa and so on and so forth. So that is my comment, my closing comment from my side. And I just wanted to touch upon that. Thank you, Sinan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. I'd like to give an opportunity for Mr. Vardanyan as Vice President of Moscow Chamber of Commerce for his final remarks or final comments. And I'd like to note to Mr. Vardanyan that there is somewhat simultaneous interpretation into Russian, so there is no need to wait for the interpreter to translate your speech. So, Mr. Vardanyan, the floor is yours for your final comments, please. Thank you, sir.
Well, this time I'm going to conclude my speech in Russian as well. Just, it's not Russian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Sorry, I'm Moscow Chamber. So, dear colleagues, dear friends, thank you so much for such an interesting discussion. Thank you so much for your interest to development of economic relations between Russia and Arab Emirates. I would like to highlight that the Arab Emirates are the gateway for us to GCC countries, Middle East and North African countries markets. One of the most interesting platforms to promotion in those regions. I would like to highlight that Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry believes food market issues are very significant, one of the major issues. And of course, we pay special attention to developing technological cooperation. Considering all the breakthrough decisions in new tech that Russian companies have nowadays in all digital directions, we are ready to cooperate with United Arab Emirates companies and work both inside their country and with the neighboring countries. I'm very grateful for the Dubai Chamber for their initiative. I believe it's the first in the number of events. We have already done an event on the platform of Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, telling about the UAE together with our committee. And I would like to advise all our colleagues, please go to Alexei Busev, to our committee. Of course, we support them completely. We work together in promoting and representing companies to find reliable partnership relations. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanan, for your moderation. Thank you so much, Mr. Vardanyan.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying with us throughout this extensive webinar discussing a very important issue with prominent speakers. I would like to remind our audience that today we had a great panel of speakers from both the United Arab Emirates and the Russian Federation. In the sequence of their presentations, we had Mr. Omar Khan, Director of International Offices at Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Suren Vardanyan, Vice President of Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman, Senior Manager, Business Relations Department at Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Issa Khouri of the UAE Fruits and Vegetables Traders Group, himself Managing Director of the Mirak Group in the UAE. We also had Mr. Dmitry Krasnov, Head of the Agro Export, a subdivision of the Ministry of Agriculture of the Russian Federation, Mr. Sergei Vologodsky, Vice President of the Russian Export Center, and Mr. Alexei Busev, Manager of the Russian Food House in Dubai, and himself Chairman of the UAE-Russia Cooperation Committee at Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As you can see from the slide, there are email address for me and for Mr. Busev. Please do engage with us for your export and import needs. We work closely in partnership to support business inquiries. We have a very capable team also at Dubai Chamber of Commerce, the Member Relations Department, the Business Relations Department, which helps us connect with UAE enterprises, both individually and also through business groups and councils that operate under Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So the partnership is here to support you. The physical office of the Russian Food House is in Dubai to support you. So do engage with us and help us guide your business development and help you build success stories of bilateral food trade. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And this concludes our webinar, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you.